past Muharram, and I had a ladies' majlis, and at the end of the majlis, this young girl came up to me. She must have been about 14, 15 years old. And her grandmother said to me that she has not been able to cope very well with the loss of her father. He died recently. So if you could, say a few words or give her some consolation. So when she came up, she said, I've been asking a lot of questions. You know the existential type of questions, like why me? Why does God do this to me? Is there a God even? Why is there so much suffering? These kinds of questions. And so I said to her, imagine if I gave you this car, and there was this beautiful shiny new car right there. I said, if I gave you this car as a gift, and then you drove it around for a little bit and had some fun and you grew attached to it, and one day I came to you and said, I've got something in the glove box that I'd like to take. Would you be upset? I said, naturally you shouldn't be that upset, should you? Because I gave you the car, I let you drive it, I let you have it, and now I've just come back to take something out of the glove box. And she's like, yeah, you're right, I wouldn't be upset. I said, that's exactly what's happened to you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you everything. You have, there's a hadith where the Prophet asks his companions, what is the first blessing, what is the first ni'mah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us? No one could answer. Amir al-Mu'mineen said, An khalaqani, the fact that He created me. I mean, imagine without that, nothing else would have any meaning, nothing else would matter. I exist, and that in itself is worthy of appreciation. Alhamdulillah, and khalaqani. Imam al-Hussein goes into detail in Dua Arafah about some of the blessings, at least some of the physical blessings, and also some of the, if you like, spiritual blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. He goes into very, very specific details, which is another reason that makes the dua so extraordinary. So I said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought you into this world. Then He made you healthy. Khalqan sawiyya, as Imam Hussein says. You're a healthy, individual whose body functions the way it should. And think about every single detail in your body and how, without those details, how miserable you would be. I mentioned this example many years ago. I read an interview with someone who had been a victim of an acid attack. It was a case of mistaken identity. He wasn't supposed to be the victim of the attack. The guy who came to splash the acid, sulfuric acid, into his face actually got the address wrong. But long story short, he says that when I opened the door and that man poured the acid into my face, I immediately felt all of my clothes dissolve right away. Right? This is sulfuric acid. It's the stuff you find in car batteries. He said all my clothes were dissolved instantaneously, so you could imagine what that did to his skin. And for the first 2 weeks he was in intensive care, and at that time they told the family that you should come and say your goodbye because he's not doing too well. We've done the best we can, but he's probably going to die. And then he had something like 47 surgeries, skin grafts, reconstructive surgeries, taking skin from his neck and shoulders and back and trying to patch up his face, and God knows how much suffering he went through. And after all of that, 2 years later, he was asked a simple question: what's the most difficult part of your journey? Everything that you experience, what's the hardest part? He said, the hardest part is not being able to blink, because I have no skin to blink with. And I thought to myself, subhanAllah, whoever thinks about the blessing of blinking, like the blessing of the eye, I could imagine us thinking about that, the blessing of tongue, the mouth, the ears, all those things. But the eyelids? And so Allah has given you everything. And then He comes back and says, I want to borrow something from the glove box. I want to take this part. Allah owes us nothing. Allah is Al-Hannan, Al-Mannan, right? He's already, the credit, all the credit belongs to Him. He owes me nothing. No apology, no explanation, nothing. And yet, He still says, you know what, let me take this, but I'll give you something even better. And by the way, I do apologize. Allahu Akbar.